A visit to the Wilder homestead in Malone, New York feels like stepping into a storybook. The book is Farmer Boy, and the history is real.
This is the actual boyhood home from birth until 18 that Almanzo James Wilder lived in as he was growing up with his family. He later, of course, married Laura Ingalls Wilder, who was the author of the Little House books.
Laura Ingalls Wilder made her family famous when she published tales of her pioneer childhood in the Midwest. The books first appeared in the 1930s and 40s. Farmer Boy tells of her husband Almanzo's upbringing on a farm in Malone, New York during the 1860s.
Almanzo was 75 years old when Laura was writing Farmer Boy.
Jim Lusk of Lake Havasu City, Arizona, returns to Malone every summer, offering tours around the Wilder homestead.
The Wilder family came to Malone in 1816, and James, Almanzo's father, built this home, and this is the home Almanzo was born in. It is the only site that Laura wrote about that sits where it did on its original foundation. The other sites no longer exist or have been rebuilt. Many rooms contain original floors, so you can come here and, for instance, go into Mother's pantry, where all of the food Almanzo loved to eat was prepared, and that too is original floor. So the house is very, very original and very unchanged over the years. We're in Almanzo's room now, and like most families, the boys probably shared beds. And the bed they would have had, if they shared it, would have been for sure a rope bed. Almanzo had enough money to have feathers in his ticking. Most people might have had straw from the barns. And this is the girls' room where the three girls stayed, as well as Mother's loom was kept in there, as well as her spinning wheel.
This is where Almanzo would come to do his chores every morning, and the water goes right through the trough down into the barnyard.
Tour guide Caitlin Pierce first visited the farm after enjoying the Little House books as a girl. Now she spends her summers ushering visitors into the Wilder's world.
Most visitors want to hear about this story from Farmer Boy, where Almanzo's bossy sister Eliza Jane was telling him what to do when polishing the parlor stove, and he got mad at her and threw the stove polish brush right at her and left a big black oily smudge on the very fancy, very expensive wallpaper. And thanks to photos from the restoration, I get to show them exactly where it would have been.
The barns are very special because they are exact replicas of the barns you read about in the story Farmer Boy. Laura, growing up as poor as she did, sitting there writing a story about her husband's childhood, where he had a barn that was so big that they could actually take the oxen and the wagon right inside to unload the things they just brought from the fields. That must have made her smile from ear to ear to think that her husband grew up so much better off than she had been.
Avid fans can pick up their copy of Farmer Boy right on the farm where the story takes place. It's one of the many items in the gift shop. You'll also find a CD of Laura's voice, pronouncing her husband's name differently from the Almanzo you heard in the TV series.
Farmer Boy was written from facts and stories Almanzo told me. They are all true.
Behind the store in the museum, you'll find rare copies of the books and other objects from the Wilders' past.
They're priceless. Some of the things belong to the Wilders. We even have some of Almanzo's reading glasses that he wore, like the actual ones, that I think that's really, really neat to be able to show people. But there's also an autographed copy of Farmer Boy that Laura signed herself, and other artifacts that connect us back to the Wilders' time.
I'm happy to be here. I like looking at all the history, seeing the cow's yoke, and seeing all the apples and how they sheared the sheep and spun all the wool.
The most exciting tours that we give as tour guides are with people who have come here specifically because of the book Farmer Boy, and they no longer have to try to visualize what the place looked like. They can actually see it. And they get so excited. I've actually had people who have broken down and cried during tours because of the memories from reading the books and then actually seeing it in person.
Adirondack Journeys on Mountain Lake Journal is made possible through the support of the Adirondack Foundation.